My name is James, and when Down syndrome entered my life through my daughter, it humbled the bejesus out of me. In this video, I want to share our journey from the moment we received the diagnosis to the challenges we faced and how we eventually brought our daughter home. I'll also be offering some advice on communication, building a support system, and finding ways to relieve stress during difficult times. I remember receiving a pamphlet during a meeting with a doctor who was familiar with Down syndrome. She handed it to us saying, "In this pamphlet, you'll find resources. You'll need a medical team, and every case is different. Any questions?" My wife and I sat there blankly, but after a few moments of silence, the doctor left the room. My wife was ready to be with our daughter, but due to COVID, only one of us could stay. So I went home. Back home, I tried visiting the websites from the pamphlet, but I couldn't bring myself to dive in. I was really bummed out because I couldn't spend as much time with my daughter as I wanted. The hospital had strict rules. Only one parent could visit each day. Thankfully, as COVID protocols began to loosen up, they made an exception for our special situation, allowing 2 parents a day. I wasn't big on social media, except for YouTube, especially after losing my grandfather. So finding online communities didn't happen until later on in my daughter's life. At the time, I decided to be patient, leaning on prayer and gaming to help pass the time while I waited for her to come home. Gaming became a way to keep myself grounded during those long, uncertain days. But soon after, we discovered that her health was taking a nosedive, and it would be a long time before she could come home with us. It took at least 13 months before she made it home, due to health issues that we'll touch on briefly here, but dive deeper into in future videos. If you're curious about common health challenges for babies with Down syndrome, be sure to subscribe and join us on this journey. My daughter was doing great, which is why she came out of the incubator, but soon after, her breathing became an issue and she was quickly outfitted with a breathing tube. The doctors initially thought her heart was the culprit due to her having AVSD, but after surgery, we discovered the true issue was trachea and bronchial malacia. Eventually, she had to undergo another procedure to be outfitted with a trach NG tube. The doctors told us that the way to get her home was to take a trach care class and get her off the ventilator. That became our new objective, and we worked on it tirelessly. I remember doing my first trach change and thinking, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I have to. So suck it up and let's go. I was hard on myself then, but also gentle. I allowed myself to feel disappointed, nervous, or whatever else came up. I tell myself, okay, I know I'm feeling this way now, but I've got a job to do. Be the best dad for my daughter, no matter what. I took the lead in learning everything I could to get her home, and it seemed to be working because we graduated from the class. But my daughter's improvements weren't quite at the pace the hospital was comfortable with, so they decided she'd need to go to a recovery facility to wean her off the ventilator. At the facility, we had to start all over, pass the trach care course, the G-tube care course, and then wean her off the ventilator. I was grateful at the time because the COVID protocols were easing up and my wife and I were able to see our daughter at the same time. We traveled miles to see her every day, and during this time, our bond grew stronger. We began to talk about our faith together and encouraged each other to keep showing up. In a sense, we became each other's cheerleaders and confidants. It felt like one of those Love is Blind moments where people date and talk for weeks without seeing each other. That's how driving back and forth to this facility felt, and our communication began to strengthen because of it. Don't get me wrong, having to start over really sucked, but we made the most of the time we had and we were able to strengthen our skills beyond our comfort zone. We were no longer rookies, we were pretty much pros, and the nursing staff at the facility was definitely impressed. As we mastered trach and G-tube care, we made sure to set boundaries to ensure a smooth transition home for our daughter. We told the nurses, please no TV after 8 p.m. and try to get her out of bed when possible. But despite our requests, we often came in to find our daughter with wet diapers and television on blast singing, "Let it go, let it go." It wasn't what we wanted, and we knew we had to get her home. As we prepared to bring her home, the facility informed us that we had to do night training separately. They insisted that my wife and I stay overnight individually to prove that each of us could handle the night care on our own. This was frustrating because we had already passed the same course at the hospital, and we had a solid plan in place, including my sister-in-law, who had also completed the training and was ready to help at home. The facility's rigid stance felt unnecessary and unfair, given our unique situation and the financial and scheduling challenges we were already managing. We explained our situation to them. You're not being fair to our unique situation. We've passed this course at the hospital, and we've secured a third person at home who has also passed. We've stayed the night together due to financial and scheduling reasons. We've been flexible, but you've been rigid. We want our daughter home, so pass us. This pushback actually worked after we spoke with a different caseworker who understood our concerns, and soon enough, we were finally driving our daughter home. I shared all of this to highlight how different every diagnosis can be and how varied each response might be. Just like you may never know what your baby will go through, you can't always predict what you'll go through as well. During this time, I made it a point to check in on my wife constantly, and honestly, I still do. I think I ask her every day if she's okay. Maybe it's just a habit now. We vent to each other, explain what we mean, how we feel, and how we can do better. It took a lot of practice to be open to each other's complaints and not take things the wrong way. I encourage all couples to communicate. Talk loud, soft, hard, easy, whatever it takes. I never wanted my wife to feel alone, and I believe that effort pushed her to want to do the same for me. We've improved vastly in that area over time. Another piece of advice is to build a strong support system with family or friends. We did this with my wife's family. She already had a daughter, a son, and was raising her sister. We spoke with them extensively, giving updates and hosted family meetings where we'd pray and vent, talking loud, soft, hard, and easy. In a big way, Ro has made this family much better communicators. We put a lot of trust into the medical teams handling our daughter, and it was fruitful most of the time, but it would have been better to hear from others who have been through it. It's been 4 years, and my wife and I are now becoming more comfortable with our story and joining the many different online communities. These communities are so rich with information that I encourage you all to join them. I've seen families vent and others encourage them through it. I've seen success stories that inspired me to love harder and honestly migrate to other platforms. I've been thinking of creating or discovering a Discord server as recommended on Reddit, and I see the value in having a server dedicated to Down syndrome. So we'll be able to connect with families on Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and more. Wherever you feel comfortable exploring, explore it, and familiarize yourself with Down syndrome earlier than I did. We learned a lot from medical professionals, but more information will never hurt. Lastly, I encourage families to seek out a hobby that is effective in relieving stress. During this time, I've learned that gaming is a great hobby and fun, but it isn't as effective as reading when it comes to relieving stress. Honestly, I find myself relieving a lot more stress when I meditate. So I encourage you to find a hobby that is great at relieving stress, like ones that involve physical exercise or creative arts. That way, when you have time to yourself, you're spending it recharging your batteries efficiently and are ready to face the challenges with your child and the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Bringing my daughter home was a long and challenging process, but it taught me so much about patience, perseverance, and the power of support. I hope that by sharing our story, I've been able to provide some comfort and guidance for anyone facing similar challenges. Remember, every journey with Down syndrome is unique, but you're never alone in it. Whether it's through building strong communication with your spouse, leaning on your support system, or finding a hobby that keeps you grounded, there are ways to navigate the ups and downs. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing for more content on our experiences and tips for families like ours. Let's continue to support each other and create a community where we can all thrive together. Peace and one love.